into the village council. Here we go. So this has been pretty neat. This has been over on at WoTonPrime on Twitter. They've been asking questions. They've been running this book club, and I'm thankful for that. I like doing that every Wednesday, going in there, watching some of the responses, seeing what's up, what's happening. And they were in chapter 46, and they were talking about the Darkfriend Padain Fain. You know, one of our favorite folk to talk about. He is something else. And he's captured, right? So he's captured. He's brought before Lord Agilmar. And Moiraine is eager to question him, right? So she wants to kind of figure out what's happening. Who is he? There's something to him that is off-putting. And the Wheel of Time on Prime asked this bonus question. They said, Padain Fain cries and says, referring to the Dark One, I hate him. I want to be free of him. And they asked the question, do you think Moiraine is powerful enough to, quote, cure a Darkfriend? To actually cure a Darkfriend? And I was like, now hold on. I mean, I think it's a trick question. It's not really a trick question, but I think there's, I'll pull up some of the comments here because people were thinking sort of the same thing that I was thinking. So this is another turning of Steve. This is at Pod Another, who said, I think that it has to come from the Darkfriend, and it has to come from true remorse, not just fear and regret. I thought that was the best comment, the best response to that, because, Sir Matt, if you think back to our good friend Ingtar,
just what I was about to say, I think we've already seen a scenario where this has taken place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And so you got to remember too that WoTonPrime is setting this up for people who haven't really been into it. They're doing a reread. Some people are veteran readers of the series, and some are not. So they are kind of just posing these questions, getting us to think about, like, Moraine's powers, her capability. What can she do? What can't she do? And a lot of the comments from people in that thread were saying things like, well, look, she couldn't actually separate Matt from the dagger as much. Like, is her power limited? And so what was interesting is you had people kind of talking about, like, Moraine's actual power. And the reason I said it's a trick question is because to be cured or healed from being a Darkfriend comes from within. You have the power to do that, right? And that is something that's revealed in a later book. And now Sir Matt and I can talk about that more, which is we see Ingtar. We hear what the Lord Dragon, right, Rand al'Thor, says to him. And he tells him that, Ingtar, I think it's, you have to want to. You have to want it. You have to want to step away from that darkness, you're right, and turn to the light. And he does. And he fights one last fight for the light. And it's awesome. And people are probably, they're going to be like, I'm sick and tired of Sir Ezra talking about Ingtar.
About Ingtar. But you know what? He's great.
It is.
So we're gonna keep talking about him. Yeah. So that's where I'm at with you on that is, we do see Ingtar do it, but to be fair, he is with Rand. So who knows? Is it because he's with Rand, or is it just because he decides on his own to do so? But from what we've seen from the dagger, I mean, the dagger seems to be different because it seems to have some sort of magical properties. So I think it is different than, as you're saying, right, that being a Darkfriend. Like, you make that decision as opposed to something that actually has some sort of magical properties around or bound to it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So that's, and again, what you're going to get into, and this is why I love this fandom. I truly love this fandom because there are people who are so, it's just they know that there are so many new listeners or new readers who are going to be coming into the series, and you have people, that's where they're at. They're in the eye of the world, and they're thinking about the dagger, and they're wondering if that is causing Matt to turn to a Darkfriend. I remember when I first read it thinking, like, oh shoot, one of their best friends is going to be turned to the shadow. Holy cow. And that's not necessarily what it is. And then you learn more about the dynamics behind becoming a Darkfriend, what those dark objects are doing, and sort of the bond that was creating with Matt and what it was causing him to do, which was to be paranoid, to see evil everywhere, and it was trying to consume him. So yeah, those are different things, and I think that's pretty neat. Does Moiraine also have? It's interesting, right? That, like, I think she does. I think if she were talking to Ingtar, I think would she also be able to tell Ingtar the same thing that Rand tells him? I don't know, because Rand's relationship with Ingtar, they were close. They were tight. They had grown to respect one another and have become friends along this journey. And Ingtar, sees Rand grow into this position of leadership. He's second in command, essentially. And it's like, so that meant a lot when Rand told him that you just have to want it, Ingtar. You have to turn back. You have to turn away from the shadow. But like Moiraine and some of these other people, they might not do that. They might see you as a Darkfriend, and they might just, not that the Aes Sedai would strike you down, but I mean, that's not a typical thing to say to somebody, hey, you can still come back. It's like, no, you're a Darkfriend, and you're a Darkfriend forever. You've already made the pledge. That's kind of how the White Cloaks deal with it, right? They're kind of like, no, it's once you've said it, you're done. You're labeled a Darkfriend. There's no changing. Although, I gotta admit, the White Cloaks, there is that whole sort of questioning process, and at the end, before they kill you, maybe you could come back to the light by answering their questions and by serving them in some way. But does she have the power? I think she does. I think she knows to, if someone close to Moiraine were revealed to be a Darkfriend and she cared about that person, I think yeah, you would. She would do the same thing that Rand did and talk to them and try to bring them back to the light. I think that, but then I think she knows that it is something within. Is Rand the only one that knows that? Probably not. Is it, or is it just sort of like that's something that's so simple, it's so obvious, it should be, we don't need to be some Aes Sedai well-studied master of the pattern to know this stuff. That comes from within. And I think it's kind of cool that he uses Rand to show us that and to do that. So
yeah. So I'm with you. I think ultimately, you make the choice to go with the light or go with the dark.
Yeah.
And it's a personal thing.
Yeah. Yep. 100%.